recording is there, so they can always come in and have a listen at it. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right. So I mean, probably you should introduce yourself first, because I think that that's more important, being that this is kind of your show. So I'll leave it to you to kind of introduce yourself and Excelia a little bit, and then I'll jump in and probe you with a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I think there are different ways of introducing. So I would like to say that you can see my name on the screen, so I don't want to repeat it. So simply speaking, I've started this business in 2010 after failing big time in my first business. Ended up being bankrupt for $1.5 million. So that's where I've started this business, and I had no clue what to do with it. So and I did have to learn. I did have to go through a lot of learning process. A lot of exciting people and a lot of good and bad experiences in terms of projects. So we started as a training and consulting company in 2010, and slowly understood that people are very excited about making decisions, and and they always make decisions using the gut feelings and experience, and they don't refer the data. So even though they have a lot of them, like plenty of data. So what we thought is that we would also introduce analytics to showcase the story behind the data. So we slowly started working with the technology, with people and process. So what we do is that we walk into businesses, we see how things are done in any business. So we don't go with a model and say that, okay, this is the best software or this is the best model which fits in you. We understand who they are, and what kind of activities they're carrying out, and then looking at who's doing it for them, how things are done, who's doing it for them, which is the people side of things, and then look at how can we enable this faster, what engines can make it faster. It could be a system, it could be a model, or it could be a piece of technology. So we thought having people, process, and technology would definitely enable the circle of excellence of every business. So that's an exciting way to go and talk to the business. And over a period of time, I also had the opportunity to learn a lot in terms of certifications and a lot of other courses. I think the last two courses I've done from the University of Oxford is basically one is on artificial intelligence for business leaders. I really wanted to understand how this works in terms of there's a lot of discussions and talks around that. And the second one was on venture financing. So I really wanted to understand how the venture market works, and what's the numbers behind it, and how this can add value, kind of a thing. So before that, I did my master's in business administration and in total quality management and marketing, and plenty of other lead auditor certifications, like strategy certifications and all of them. That's a bit about me. And I would say we are a very successful organization just because the kind of people we have in the business. So we have a lot of exciting people, who makes me proud every day and give me the ability to go and speak in any platform and say yes to different audience and come back and tell them how do we do that. So that's about me and a bit about Excelia. And just before I hand it over to you, we would also be talking about an exciting enterprise management system, which is more of a designed solution or design dynamic technology, throughout the session. So I'll keep it for later, so please talk a bit about you, and so if you have any questions, please go ahead, Jamie. Yeah, sure.
I mean, I can introduce myself, but I do want to reference the fact that from meeting you and Excelia, the first thing that came into my mind was dynamic technology. And I think that the word dynamic is something that is missing a great deal from software and technology programs in organizations and businesses now, where we're very heavily reliant on technology, and we go to a great deal of expense and time and effort to implement technology to assist or give us more options or repetition in process, and in that we lose a great deal of value from a human-centric perspective. we also lose a great deal of like connection between the business itself and the customer. So the one thing that has stood out to me with the two softwares that you actually offer is the way that they create value and connection between the company itself and then the market without creating gaps or chasms because the technology exists. I mean, I've been in office situations where there's 30 people in an office and nobody talks to each other because they can all email each other or chat on some cyber server between the company, and we still don't, no one knows what the other person's doing, but they can ask questions, and it kind of, the interrelation is very much missed. And in missing that interrelation and that human-centric focus, we also miss, sort of understanding what people go through in their day, what the process actually takes, where people struggle to communicate a technological process to a customer or a client. And in doing so, we sort of just become this very vapid organization that runs basically by the 1, 2, 3 steps of a computer or an instruction manual. And it becomes a very robotic organization. So the one thing that stood out to me beyond anything else was the systems that you create because of your background, because of your consulting and systems approach to the background that you have before you came into tech. It makes the tech kind of, it has its own personality, and everything within the tech, no matter how small or grand a scale that anybody invests in your technology, it gives them the ability to still keep that personable interaction, keep that idea of departments and people still being connected on a more human-centric level. And the depth to which it can be customized for a business and its goals was exceptionally interesting to me, because I definitely think that one of the greatest failures in business is that all of the tiers or moving parts within the business actually do not have a cohesive attachment to a solid goal for the company and then for them as individuals, and how that ties into what they want, what value they can provide and what value they can create for each other. So this system is probably the first that I've come across that does actually create that within an organization. And that's super exciting because tech can dehumanize so many things, and this does the complete opposite. So I'd like to introduce myself after all of that. I am a traveling CEO. I work as a success coach and a business performance agency internationally. Clearly, you can tell that I love every part of that. I'm not shy in hiding that at all. And so Farouk actually came across me by accident on LinkedIn, I believe we connected.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Very random way of connecting. But when you work internationally, that kind of tends to happen. And we, from the first moment that we sort of started speaking about business and technology, a great deal of things aligned for what we could create and offer each other as far as value within our companies and then to the market in turn. So I think that's really how this webinar's come about. Like Farouk's passion for what he can create and my passion for offering that to people and showing them that tech can be a completely different body or organism in itself that actually capitalizes on assets within companies rather than divides them is super important. One area for me where I feel like that there's a huge disconnect is risk and compliance within most companies, because there's usually a great deal of vendors involved where compliance is handled by one company and our system software is handled by this and our HR is handled by this. And I think that kind of there's a lot of things that are missing in translation for people within the business, and then businesses keeping up with those risk and compliance requirements, and particularly internationally, like companies that even are global, there's risk and compliance changes depending on the product that you sell and the service that you sell and the country that you're selling it in. So probably a huge question from outside of the dynamic side of your software is what makes your risk and compliance segment of this software any different or any better than anything else that's sort of widely known on the market?
I think the first thing is that the flexibility and capability. I would say that why the flexibility and capability, because like you rightly said, you've got 30 people organization working from different parts of the world, or working in the same office, they rarely communicate, they rarely talk, right? So similarly, when you have 10 departments or 5 departments in a business, I used to think, or I would like to believe that I've got everything required for my business, right? So, and like, I don't have to share what I have for my department to the others. So you create a wall between you and the others. And so sometimes it is seen, sometimes it's an invisible wall, but end of the day, the silo what we create, it starts to kill the business goals. So it's like this, somebody comes to me and telling that, what, I'm chasing $100 million strategy, and I'm doing all of them in a spreadsheet. That's number one, right? And then the enterprise risk manager comes in and say that, okay, I've defined all my risk at different levels of the organization, from top to bottom and bottom up. And then the question is that, okay, how are they connected to the objectives and goals of the business? And the answer comes in as, what, like, we've got a strong risk portfolio following the best practices of risk, like COSO, ISO 31000. So they start using all the terms and terminologies, which puts me off again, and say that, okay, is it helping you to achieving the goals? Is it helping you to have the informed decision making? And the third thing is that, you go to the compliance manager and you say that, okay, can I see your compliance register? He would say that, okay, he would open up a list of legal requirements, legal and regulatory requirements. And then we start talking about the policies and procedures and the other obligations and commitments from that business. They say, oh, that's with the other department, or that's with the other department. So there's no centralized compliance obligations register. So the risk is not talking to the objectives. The objectives are not connected to the legal and regulatory requirements. And the organizational goals and the strategy is not connected to the actual barriers and potential threats and everything else. So it's not really so. And before you do all of these, you don't even run a micro or macro analysis, or you don't even do a horizon scanning in the space of by the likes of the SWOT analysis or a pestle analysis. So I don't want to use so many terms and terminologies here, like I said, but simply speaking, the biggest thing is that it is an integrated system, which is very powerful, which helps you to design an organization structure, add all the relevant processes, and then helping you to add, a dynamic organization structure. And using that, you can start adding your assets. So it's all about people, process, and assets, and your projects. Your projects means everything else you do in your business, right? Then instead of buying 10 software for one business, you say that, okay, I have one for strategy, one for risk, one for audit, and you may have 10 other systems, like one for GDPR, one for ISO standards, and one for COSO, whatever it is. So what happens is that we thought, why can't we create one software which helps you to manage the governance, risk, and compliance, and strategy, and internal audit? Then came in the pandemic, where you say that, okay, you need to ensure the crisis management and the business continuity to build the customer confidence. Then a lot of new regulations are coming in on cybersecurity and information security. So we added those two pieces on top of it. So you're talking about a massive system, where you're saying that, okay, I have got my GRC and I've got my internal audit and strategy, and on top of it, you've got your business continuity and information security, with all the beautiful elements of the business, starting from people, process, and assets. And on top of it, you've got the projects as well. So it's a combined tool which has all of them in an integrated manner, and every module is connected to each other, which gives you the power of analyzing the output of an exercise as an input. To give you an example, when I do my risk assessment, what happens is that once I complete that, when I do my annual audit planning, I would get to see all those potential areas I should be auditing. The system tells you these are the areas you should audit, rather than you just follow a standard audit plan. So it works dynamically. It connects to your entire organization. And the most important part of every business, which is awareness and communication, is done in an exciting manner. So that's the beauty of the whole thing. Hope I've not taken more than more time to explain the whole story. Yeah.
No, not at all. So, and you're 100% right. Like the actual system itself and using it and experiencing it, the one thing that does stand out is how innately intelligent it is. Like the more that you talk to it, the more components of the system that you actually are utilizing, the more well-rounded the information you have access to is, which is super exciting because it again dissolves all those barriers and those disconnects between people. Now, and going to COVID, like there were a lot of people that were working remotely that were used to working in a 30-person office where they wouldn't talk to each other. So when you're not working in that office with those other 29 people, and you wouldn't talk to them when you were in the office, like the disconnect was even grander going into COVID and everyone working remotely. The thing that was super interesting to me about your software was the fact that even just using a software, if the whole team was working remotely, they had so much access to a system, goals, projects, information for their team members, progress for their team members on things, that it was almost like they would have more connection with those people being in completely different houses and buildings than they would have been in that 30-person office with a less substantial software or less robust software. So two things here. The system is massive and the substance of the system is ginormous. The different components that can be built into this system is actually exceptional for any software that I've come across myself. But the one thing that I would like people to be aware of is it's actually very, very applicable to smaller businesses. And if there are any smaller business owners listening to this webinar going, oh my God, what did Farouk just say? You probably do need to look at your risk and compliance software requirements, because so many small businesses actually aren't aware of what their obligations are as far as risk and compliance is concerned, or even audits is concerned. And the one great thing about this system, even on a small scale, it is very intuitive and it will learn and teach you how to manage these things without kind of employing an entire team for risk and compliance. And so that leads me into the idea of like data and perception. So I'm a huge believer in like companies have massive amounts of data, but if we're looking at it all from the same lens and analyzing it in the same consistent way, we never actually go anywhere because we're missing a great deal of depth and information that exists in that data. And I think that that's something that this software does exceptionally well, is that it creates different levels of perception and ways of looking at the data depending on what part of the system that you're in. So this data is relative to your goals, your projects, and the people that you have working for you, and how you can capitalize on these assets in this area for this department. And then those same goals and that same data transfers and is transferable and understandable from another department's part that they play in that same ecosystem from another perspective, so that it keeps everything really, there's a level of clarification for all the different moving parts within an organization, whether it's a team of 5 or a team of 5,000. It creates like the right lens for each party that's involved in the system. And it also creates that level of connectedness, because you can see the progress that the other areas are making, the other people are making if you're working remotely. And you can also see how what you're doing is correlates with what they're doing, and your progress adds value and assets to what they're working on, and then how collectively as a team and a company you're moving towards those goals. And that's a super interesting and unique facet of this software that was, interesting on top of all the other things that were super interesting.
Yeah, you put it right, because so I was about to tell you that, like, how is it useful for a small business, and first thing before I start, there is nothing called a small business nowadays, because a startup with 5 people can be a unicorn, creating $1 billion industry. And I don't know, how do I call somebody small right now in terms of number of people, in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability, in terms of the likes of investors you have. But one thing which is common for every business is because every business has got people, right? So, and people forms an organization, and they are formed for a reason. That means they've got goals in place. It could be financial, it could be non-financial, right? So, and they need to conduct certain activities to run the business. Those are the processes, right? And in order to run these, they need to have the right equipment and assets and infrastructure and everything else. So it could be soft, it could be hard. So this is the first thing which I would say the level zero of the tool, and which is ISO robot. So basically what happens is, the level zero, which help you to stay organized. You can wait till you make all the mistakes and find a solution to repair the problems, or you can start the right way. Because even if you walk to the biggest company in the world and you ask them, what is your organization chart? What answer do you get, Jamie? You're a consultant, right? You say that, okay, is it getting updated? Or is it, yeah, it's a fact, right? So I'm going to the biggest organization in the world, and I'm asking them, do you have a dynamic organization chart? People come and go. It's a simple thing, because do you have a design element in your business, which is dynamic? So it's more like a dynamic design framework or a solution or a technology, whatever you call it as. So it starts from level 0 to level 7. So any business who's starting yesterday or who's about to start tomorrow can actually start plugging this in, add onboard your people into this, and start enjoying the show, basically. So that's how it works for it. It works more like a Lego bricks. So based on your maturity, based on your culture, based on your competency, and based on the kind of leadership you have, and based on the kind of business and the business leadership and the way you want to run the business, it actually allows you to sit inside that, and you can fit your Lego bricks. You can have all the 20 plus modules all at one go, or you can start with 3, you can start with 2. So you can start with your people and process and assets, and and the structure of the organization, add your goals, add your potential barriers to the goals. So it helps you to, in a simple manner, if you don't have an existing system, it helps you to establish an organized business management system. But if you have one, it helps you to manage and improve using that. So that's how I would like to define, the tool, and how it's really, really valuable. Like I've seen people saving a lot of time and money. So I would say any organization who's using it easily saves 55% of the time. That means 55% of the payroll. And I've seen bigger organizations saving, 10 to 15, $20 million per annum. So the scalability is really powerful, because today me and you can start a business, Jamie. So what happens is that we know everything by looking at each other. But what if it becomes 20? What if it becomes 200? How would they know what we are doing, what we have done in the past? So you need to have this basics, or the portfolio of your business, known and communicated to everybody in the business. So it is very powerful in terms of creating that awareness, engagement, and communication by having all these bricks, and choose what you want and get started. That's how it works. Yeah.
And I think that's super important, because one thing that I always find when I deal with businesses that have scaled, and like you said, small businesses scale overnight to like a $10 million revenue, and 20,000 times the employees
Yeah.
in a short period of time. Now, I think what's super important, like when you still at that level, what's lost is that the in situ tangibility of things when you come from a small business, because like usually the founder knows every customer, every client, they know the ins and outs of all the things that are produced, everything that goes on, and then you scale either really quickly or slowly. At some point you scale, and you get to this scale point, and there's like a level of understanding, a level of like connected information, and I use the word empathy in a sense that you can still speak to everybody that works in the company. Like when you go from 5 people to 10,000 people, you can't sort of speak to everybody and connect with everybody on that level. And the one thing that I like about this software is it kind of creates that huge level of scalability to, billion-dollar revenue, but keeps that small business tangible feel, where you have access to all of the information that you need. You have access to the side of like people and the customers and the process and the way things are working. Even at that level, you still have that small kind of business approach because of your software allows that. And the other side of that is it actually allows companies, major companies with that scalability or that level of team funding, the ability to capitalize on the human capital that they have, rather than just expect that their capital and their assets lie in the technology that have injected. So they multiply the asset of your software with the asset of all the human capital they have within their business existing and to come. And all of a sudden we've got like 2 times 2 is a lot more than 1 + 1.
So that's exactly the case, so it is like what I've seen is that people have got different ways of looking into a system, because even if you create a system, having all the best practices in one place, when you go to a new meeting, they would ask you, how about this? Then you realize that, okay, that is missing. But if you can address that by design, and then you can create that configuration within the system, that's where it becomes powerful. So we never wrote a system based on few forms. We designed a system which is capable of accommodating multiple industries and multiple businesses, and also any size of the business. So currently we are talking to one of the largest certification bodies in the world, where they said that, okay, we would like to introduce this tool as a business maturity assessment model. So what they say is that, okay, this starts from level 0 to level 7. So we would like to offer a 7-star rating or a 5-star rating based on the maturity. So what they've asked to do is that, they've asked to put these framework together for them, and they would certify it, and they would assess it. So it's kind of a recognition by itself if they feel it that way. Right. Yeah. So, and Jamie, I did lose you in terms of, like I had a bit of problems in the internet. So was there anything else you said in terms of the core topics I need to hear? Was there a question, from you? So I did miss, some of your discussions. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I mean, as long as I was recorded, I don't think there was anything else that you actually had to address. I think that it was more, I was getting very descriptive and passionate about the things that I love.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I love about what you just said is, technology has been around for a long time, and it was not as robust, not even as your system is, just in general, when it first came into the market. And there's a lot of companies that will build, very specific software for corporate enterprises, and there's still a lot of this, there's technology is only capable of so much, and companies need to either to compromise systems and people to fit into what technology can create or what technology exists, or there's a lot of we need the technology to dictate what the company looks like, and the technology, we build the company or design the processes of the company around what the technology is capable of. Something that is super important is that we don't do that, because the problem with technology in that capacity is it's very, very limiting. We ignore a great deal of the value that we have already within the company, or we compromise a great deal of that to fit into this repeatable, reportable system. The thing about your software is that it's so customizable and so designable that companies don't actually need to compromise to fit within it. That we can design a whole company based on what you can offer, or we can design a whole system based on a really successful company. And that's exciting, because then it removes a level of limitation that technology has provided for a long time, that companies have been stuck within because it's available to them and it's the only thing that they have access to, or it's the only level of affordability that they can have, but they know to keep up with the modern era and the progression in business that they need to have a certain level of technology to keep up. And your system is, again, we're going back to the scalable from small to huge corporate enterprise. Not only does it facilitate all of those different levels, it's scalable across those levels, but it is also very designable to whatever a company wants to create. So this is not a system that is designed based on, relay steps in a race. It's a system designed based around goals and intentions for businesses that creates no limitation, because it actually will continue to evolve with what they want to create and how they're creating it in real time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, and I would like to also add, even we being a consulting company, or, you being a business consultant, I would like to say to every small and big business in the world, if your focus is growth, if your focus is improvement, I would say that, okay, don't limit yourself to any standards or framework, because, don't take any standards or a consultant's experience as a benchmark. Take that as a baseline. That should be a basics, right? You should be able to build from there. So I would say that, a lot of these organizations, when they grow up, they tend to adopt more structures, more policies, and more frameworks, and they think that, okay, they limit themselves into that framework. They're pushing them, but you don't realize your power of your knowledge as a business, right from you started the business till now. Why are you trusting so much, even we being the consultants, why are you just trusting so much on the consulting world, and also on the also on the frameworks, whereas you have to apply your knowledge. If you have a consultant, talk to them and see, explain them where you are, and start from there. Don't come down. Make sure that, if the basics are missing, you can always add it, because this tool would force you to have the basics first before you try touching the moon, because we're always behind the business excellence models. We're always behind the business improvement models, but we have not set the people, we have not connected them to the processes, and we have not connected them to the assets, and we have not even defined the roles and responsibilities of an individual, considering the goals of the organization. So why are you forming departments? Why are you forming an organization? So this tool would force you to answer these questions, right from designing an organization structure. So it's a very powerful tool, because it would force you to stick to the basics and then start from there. So if you don't have a baseline, it's very difficult to touch the moon, right? So one step at a time. It's more like a steady mode. Even if you're the biggest company in the world, I think there is a serious need of having these dynamic approach in every business, because, like I said in the past, you are a two people organization, still you can target $1 billion kind of a revenue, considering the way the business is going and the kind of opportunities we have through investors, and different forms of investors and different forms of investments. And people are happy to invest if you have the right if you have the right idea, and if you have the right goal. So they trust you as an individual, rather than looking at a 20-year-old organization. So the times have been changing. So what do you think, Jimmy?
So I think that something that's super important here is like being able to apply knowledge to substantiate growth. So you can create, like, even with your software, you can create an existing framework or design the software with where you are now, with the idea in mind that this will be the level of growth, or this will be the goals for that growth, and what the company looks like then. The one thing that is interesting about the way that your software adapts is that if companies are really in like evolving mode and want to keep stepping into levels of growth, your system will facilitate that. If they're not, like I always like the astronaut expression, like we've got spaceships or rocket ships, and like, we're kind of in test growth mode. So we get so far to the moon, and then, we work out what all the problems on the spaceship are, and then we end up back on the ground, and then we've got to start again. And then we get, closer to the moon on the second run, and because we fixed all the problems that we think are appearing. And so like creating the baseline kind of eliminates getting halfway up to the moon and deciding that there's a gasket that's blown in a particular portion of the spaceship. So creating that baseline, your software then can say, okay, well, this is the baseline, these are the goals, this is the new goal, like we've achieved this project, we've achieved this goal, we've got to this level, what's next? And we keep going. And the interesting thing about, like you mentioned about consultants, is if your consultant is saying like this is the only level you can go to, you probably need to get to that level and then get a new consultant because your consultant should always be pushing for you to evolve past the next level. And they should also make sure that you can like facilitate or have the growth velocity to be able to go to those goals and facilitate those goals. And this system allows you to do that as well, aligned with that, because when you have, a disproportionate growth velocity, you start to like blow things out of proportion, and you're like expending cash where, forward before you actually even have it to spend. Your cash flow systems are thrown off. With your goals and projects being in this software, and all of the teams within the company being able to see the actual real-time live contributions to those projects and the way that we're working towards those goals, you kind of actually stop your blowout. You stop your gasket blowing, because you can see what is tangibly viable from the scope of the entire business, not just from what you as an individual is doing within the team, your team, the company is doing, or a department. You can actually see like how everybody's trajectory is working towards something, and whether you're going to blow out before you even get to that place.
I think that makes complete sense. And and if there are any big businesses or any big boys listening to this, I would like to say that please have a look into how are you managing your business as usual. We call it as BAU, right? The business as usual, and all these regulatory framework like the ESG framework, like the the GDPRs, and different legal and regulatory frameworks, and all your management systems in the space of the ISOs and your strategy framework. So how are they connected to your business as usual? So whenever you grow as a business, you tend to bring these frameworks and models and consultants and everybody in the room, and that they form separate entities within the business. So you create more rooms which are closed and dark, and which has no connection to your business.
Hallway gets longer. Yeah.
So if you are in the zone where you think that, okay, I've got 10 systems and I've got another business which is my core business, and which have no connection to these. So if you have got this scenario, you're actually managing 11 businesses altogether, because that becomes an administration burden. Because when the consultant starts working with you, you think that, okay, I'm paying the consultant, let him do everything. I don't want to be a part of it, right? So it's important that, you make sure that, your business as usual is connected to your management systems and structures. So this is one more thing what we have focused, because we were never a technology company. We were a solution service, solution provider, or more of, a people space, addressing the problems of the business. And so what we have done is that, when we were designing these tools, we made sure that, all the standards and structures have got one thing in common. It helps you to plan, it helps you to execute your plan, and then it helps you to check, have you done according to your plan or what? So you plan, you execute, and then you check, like, did I do well based on my plan? Then you look at whatever is going well, you replicate in the other branches and other zones of the business. Whatever is not doing well, so you repair them and understand why is it not happening for me, right? So this is a common thing for any management structure or any business framework. So we thought we would bring that layman's language or common man's thought into every business, and it directly sits inside your business as usual. So it is important, because people think that, okay, I have an ERP or a CRM that addresses my operations, but that takes care of your performance of the business. How about the conformance of the business? How about your strategy and your goals? How often do you track them, right? So it's important that your entire business not just focus only on operations and the net profits. It has to have a wider 360-degree approach, so which covers the entire elements of every business, small or big. Yeah. So what do you think?
So I think that's integral, is because people think like there's goals and plans for a business, particularly when they're big, because the top end of town, Mount Olympus kind of says, all right, this is where we're going to go, and this is what we're going to achieve revenue wise, and the new developments the business is going to have. And as they do that, they actually kind of forget like how their business as usual contribute to those things. So your business as usual on a day-to-day is actually not taking any steps to connect with the new goals and the new projects and the new developments of the company, because you kind of left your business as usual as the same. And it also disconnects the people that are conducting the business as usual from the goals, because they don't actually understand what they're doing every day. You might come to them and say, okay, well, you need 15% more growth because we have to hit these targets. Okay, but why and how? Like, particularly in multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar corporations, because the guy that's on the phone taking calls from customers is like, why do you need to make more money, dude? Like, right? Like, why do you need to make more revenue than you made last year when my paycheck hasn't changed? So if we can connect, like, motivation is integral to achieving goals. And so if business as usual is actually privy to a motivational reason for those projects and goals, and they can actually see tangible results moving forward for their own investment in your big, your huge corporate goals, then you will actually create your business as usual will times and multiply the level to which and the speed to which you can actually achieve those greater goals from an overall company perspective. Because particularly in corporate business, I mean, if you've got 100,000 people actually invested in the long-term goal or the project for the corporation, then you also have times like their effort and their input by that many people as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it enables you the why of every business, and how this needs to be done is completely up to you. So it doesn't force you to do this is the best way to do it. It enables you to do the way you do, because based on your culture and your competence, or based on the structure of your business. Yeah, so it makes complete sense, to go that way and choose the way you want to run your business. And so it can connect your business as usual and bring you to speed. And the simplest example would be for bigger businesses, smaller business. When you do a customer feedback or customer feedback analysis, you're always on 99.99, right? Because the customers are always happy. So when you look at your customer retention, how many customers have you retained and how many of them have you lost? You see that, okay, even though it's 99.99, I've lost 20 of my good customers last year. So where is the conflict? So this is the biggest example of having the business as usual on one side, where I feel that, okay, so I'm losing my customer, but my quality department comes and tells me, our customer feedbacks are in 5 stars. Mm-hmm. So where's the conflict? Why are you not seeing it? So if you are the CEO, I'm coming to you, and the finance department is coming and crying, saying that, okay, we are losing customers, but the quality department is coming and telling, we have got this year, this was the best year, it was 99.98, now it is 99.99 this year. So you're shaking hands with them, saying that, okay, excellent. But where's the conflict? You're not seeing it because they're not coming together. They're coming in as 2 different occasions and 2 different presentations. Yeah, so it's important that you have got that integration done in your business, and make sure that you start counting your returns based on the actual business results, not on your PowerPoint presentations built overnight. So yeah,
your high level data is never as intuitive as your low level, like your actual substantial data, like you say, or your integrated data. And that's going back to like the lens of understanding like individual parts of the company, and then how those parts of the company actually affect the ecosystem and what that means for you. Because you're right, usually when you lose customers, unless they're super disgruntled, they just slip away silently. And if somebody else replaces them, particularly in multi-billion-dollar corporate businesses, somebody will replace them quite quickly, and you don't actually realize how many customers you've lost in a fiscal year, simply for the fact that they were replaced so quickly. But the problem is, with the customer you lose, you have to work 10 times harder to even get them back, if they ever come back at all. So it's a high cost return for those customers. And in the customers that replace them, you're probably just as likely to turn them over. So once you actually finish recycling all of your audience, that is when you start to have your quality guys come to you and say, oh, we went from 19.9 to 19.6 to 19.4, and you start going down. Once but you only ever see that eventually, usually with data, when you exhaust the market of people to replace the people.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and so that's how businesses works. So you have we always feel that okay, we have everything right, till you see that okay, till you see the gap. So see, this tool would enable you to understand because it has got a business assessment module, and if you say yes, no, and yes, no to few questions, which is already there, it would tell you where exactly you are in the business in terms of your maturity of your people, your process, and your technology, and in terms of your setting your organization goals and risks, in terms of your information security. So some people would think that okay, why is it information security important for me? So if you have a system and if you're working with your customer data, don't wait for something to hit badly, or don't wait for a fine to come to you to think why is it important for me, because if you're handling customer data and if you have got information on your business and if it is not protected well and if it is not in compliance with the local, regional, and international frameworks, you're going to you not just for the regulatory or the compliance ways, it is also hitting you on the customer confidence. If I'm a customer and if I don't see that happening, I would end up losing the trust over a period of time because the others are catching up. There are plenty of technology suits available which is addressing in no time. So it is important that you make sure that you address your cyber security elements, create an awareness between your people, what to click, what not to click. It's important that you have those things addressed. And plus, on top of it, you need to make sure that your business is resilient. Like if there is another pandemic, we're not sure how to address them, but at least the incidents which is going to come in, we are prepared for it. We have tested similar incidents. So you have a strong business continuity management system, which would help you to stay stronger and which is connected to your risks and which is connected to your goals of your business. So it's kind of a powerful tool. And there are plenty of organizations across the world who's utilizing the tool. Some utilizes it as a compliance management system. Some utilize it as a governance, risk, and compliance management system. Some utilize it as a strategy or a business goal management system. And some would simply utilize it as an internal audit or a risk management alone. So, or a smaller organization can come in and say that, okay, I just wanted to start with the basics. Can I have the basics of the business in place? So it can be started from anywhere. You're here on top of the room, or you're just starting your business. So either ways, it's gonna help you big time. Yeah.
All right. So there is another software that you developed that I really want to talk about as
Yeah.
well. Just to tie up as a robot and design structures and dynamic technology for businesses to build or become creative in their own frameworks. Is there anything that you want to add to this segment before I jump into the next software?
I think we've got enough. We have discussed more than enough, and I would really ask anybody who's listening to it, if you think it is not real, we would like to show this to you. And before you even think of spending any money, we want you to test it big time and see, and we would love to hear from you and see that, okay, is it real, or, is it possible? That's all from my side, so that's, yeah. So we would expect more feedbacks and, from the people who really want to explore this, and we're happy to talk to them on this. Yeah.
So I think that's something that's going to speak really strongly to, like the viability of Exodia and the technology is this next software, which is Design Space. And the thing that attracted me, I actually think Design Space sold me, even more so than the dynamic technology, because it was your intention behind Design Space that kind of really stood out to me as like an altruistic or social enterprise underlying thread for your company and what you're trying to create through technology. Design Space is for lack of a better word, it is a free way to make your ideas come to fruition. And it's the kind of software it's something that's interesting to me because I come across people that have brilliant ideas but don't necessarily always have like the business sense or the projection sense to put together a business proposal or understand the capacity of an idea. Also, like companies that exist that want to build, like branch out into new development areas or industries, and they struggle to kind of conceptualize what that idea would look like. Design Space and the team at Exodia actually will put all of that together based on a very brief discussion with you about like the intention for the business and the tension for the idea and what it can create, and then it kind of can evolve along that process and that line as much as you like they'll actually provide you with a business plan or proposal for the idea. You can go down into like prototyping, you can go further down the path into sort of seeking investors and pitch decks, and there's most of that is kind of available to people or entrepreneurs on a level where there isn't any investment until we're like from their point of view, until they understand the relationship with the Design Space team and what they're actually trying to create. So it's literally a manner of like, you can use the software if you have an exciting idea and don't have the money and have no idea how to build the technology that is will support the idea or the system. Design Space is kind of the place to start. So, I mean, you could probably speak to like why you and the company decided that this was a way of like generating new ideas and bringing new things to light and to market for in such a day and age where there's so many new ideas and far less ways to actually create them. You could probably speak a lot more highly to why that was a call for you guys to create Design Space.
Yeah, I would say it's always very exciting to come with nice concepts. If you look at around the world, you can see a lot of innovation hubs, a lot of incubators, a lot of accelerators, and so try walking into them and share your ideas. And just if you've ever shared it with them, see, I've shared it with these kind of institutions in the past, and some of them are really exciting, and most of them have got an approach that, okay, I've heard your idea, we will come back to you. You have not shortlisted, unfortunately, not this time, or you have to go for a 6-month course with us, and which would enable you to become a businessman. I've never understood what's the story behind it, but what I was telling is this was designed for the common man, because I'm not a rich kid, so came with a lot of money into the business. We learned the hard way. So as the people with us as an organization. So all we have learned in the last 12 years, and the people who were with us, and they have learned it in the earlier phases of their life as well. So we bring in that soft capital in the space of people, process, and technology into one place to enable innovation for everyone, everywhere. So it's a simple way of telling it. But if you look at the likes of Google and Microsoft, they have got their own innovation hubs, but the access is limited, right? So we wanted to have a place where any common man across the world can walk in with their idea, and somebody would hear them without validating or evaluating the the idea and the concept behind it. We don't really know the context, and we just have one framework to evaluate an idea, and we say that, okay, this is not good, right? So we thought that, okay, we won't evaluate any idea, we would listen to every single idea, and we would brainstorm it and put a business case around it, and then start building a prototype for them. So we call it as a zero cost prototyping. So simply, to put it simply, if you have extremely cash rich and time poor, because you don't have time, you've got a lot of money, you've got a lot of exciting idea. So here I'm talking about large corporations, very strong SMEs, even the government organizations, they've got huge challenges. So they call in consultants, and, or they buy software and they pay a lot of money to them. So why don't you think of designing a solution where you own the digital assets or the intellectual property of that software, and make sure that you test it for a year, and because you are a brand and you're being known in the market, you can actually take it to the global market as your own product next year. So this is for the big boys, or this is for the matured businesses, and this is for people who's got a lot of money and they don't have time. But how about people who's got a lot of exciting idea? They don't have money, they have no access to technology. What do? Right? So we thought that, okay, we would help them to visualize their idea by doing the zero cost prototyping. And through this, we are not doing any magics. I won't even call this as a software. This is actually a model or another design where anybody can come with an idea and go out, carrying a successful venture or holding a successful venture. And they are doing this course, when they are actually, living the journey with us. So in a simple manner, I would say that, anybody who comes up with an idea, and so all they care about is that, is somebody going to steal my idea? So what we do is that, we make sure that their intellectual property is protected. We have got all the agreements in place. So like I said, Jamie, I think it would be a good idea for you to live. You are living the journey right now. So it would be a good idea to tell everybody that, what happened when you came with an idea, and where are you on that? So how confident are you? And like, have you seen us doing everything what we said we would do, or did we fall short of anything? I think it's important for you to talk about it rather than me talking loud about it.
So this was super interesting, because when I met the team and we were talking about design space, they were like, okay, like, you get on the software and submit an idea and, like, go through the process, so you experience for yourself. So when you're helping other people walk through it, or you're, suggesting it as a process to other people, you understand what's going on and what they go through. So when they approached me, I was like, well, I have this, very, very half-baked idea that was really just more, there was nothing more than an idea and an intention. And I was like, okay, well, let's just see without like I would like to use this opportunity to kind of build that out while I'm doing something, and let's see what the team come back to me with, as far as like for me to test their creativity, because there was like not a whole lot of information that I could provide them, because it wasn't actually a fully designed or developed idea. So I submitted my my business idea just to see the process. And by the time, like, I'm now just pre-prototype phase. I think at this point we've kind of gone back and forth with some ideas, and the team have come to me with a business case. And so they're actually the ones that have sold me on the fact that I should move on this like tomorrow. When I first went into the process, it was literally not even a fully fledged, fully formed idea. And now working with them, just, even just to test this, I'm like, okay, so now we're actually going to do this in the next couple of months rather than put it on the to-do list for future. And the thing that I found super interesting about like the way that the team worked within Design Space is, so just so everybody knows, the process is you submit like kind of a blanket idea, like a very high level understanding of your idea, and the team actually then meet with you and pick your brain, and you throw some ideas. There's like a brainstorming session that goes into this, keeping in mind that this is all done without any exchange of value. The only exchange of value at this point in time is it's a potential investment for them if the idea is viable, and there's also potential soft capital investment for you should the case study go all the way through to the end of the process. So then they come to you with what is probably one of the most impressive free business cases I've ever seen in my life, as far as like they even go to the degree of like scheduling out a time frame for development of the software. They go to the degree of researching what's available for them to develop and where they would not be infringing on copyrights for existing technology, which is super important when you're working with something like this. They also go to the extent of like the guys even came to me with like visual designs for what like the process and the steps of the technology would look like, as well as like a viable tender for the cost of investing in the technology and the time frame to do that. So we're at that point in the process. I think seeing like how quickly they ran with a very broad high level idea that I had, and the depth and level of detail that they went to in their business case was exceptionally impressive, because that's something that I would expect from somebody that had all the information that was in my brain, and they didn't have all of that. And so we're at the point now where we're kind of discussing, like what an investment, like soft capital investment would look like, what other facets we need to bring into the business to make it a fully fledged business, which is about halfway through the process. And like I said, I was not ready to move on this. It wasn't something I had considered moving on anytime soon. And with the work that they did, the effort that they put into, again, like I said, nothing, we have not exchanged any value except for this idea, like my idea and their ideas to creatively bring it to fruition. And yeah, I would definitely move on this idea far faster than I ever intended had I not met this team. So it's, there is not, it's all online. It's not, there's no, you're not obligated to do anything. If you've got an idea, it's probably even really for people that haven't even got a fully formed idea. They think that they can do something. They're not even really sure how the technology would apply, but that the technology would create value and be an asset to its existence. And its existence would be an asset to society, I think is super important for Design Space, because a lot of the projects that I've been privy to understanding have come through this are all kind of, socially enterprise designed. They will contribute to something, whether it be government, humanitarian, environment. There's there's a little bit of a change the world underlying vibe to this part of the business, which I also love and align with really strongly. So it's also been exciting because I probably hadn't expected it to be quite as an exciting process.
Yeah, I would say,
Design Space.
yeah. Yeah, I would say one of the reasons of having Design Space on board, it's like we are not doing any magic. So we are just activating an existing ecosystem, which is already there. So if you look at from a country perspective, every government wants to create more jobs and more businesses. And they spend a lot of money, in the form of different budgets and different initiatives, right? So if they want to see that, okay, where exactly they are on the number of jobs and number of businesses they've created, all from one centralized dashboard, I don't think they have one, for most of them. I don't say that, okay, not everyone. They've got a lot of reports, they've got a lot of published papers and everything else. But when it comes to, let's say if you come one level down, the government assigns it to different departments and different ministries to release these funds, and they release these programs. And then comes the university. The university, they say that, okay, we teach a lot of exciting, courses for people, but there's a huge gap between the industry and academia where the student learns everything. They don't get to test or participate or practice. So we thought every time we do this, every time we write a business case, every time we do the, prototyping, we would involve every single student and we would give them an opportunity to be an intern of this exercise. And we would involve every PhD student and a faculty to write research papers on every idea that comes out. So rather than looking at the research papers, who always goes into the shelves of these big universities, we are writing every idea into a research case, or a research or a business case, a detailed research paper. So for an idea holder, he gets to live his idea. And, for an investor, he gets to see hundreds of ideas coming in from every country, through this platform, right? For a government, they get to see how many jobs and businesses have created, what kind of foreign direct investments have come in, what kind of growth and quality of life have improved. For a university, they get to see how many patents have come in, how many new businesses have come in, how many internships have come in. And for every SME or for every startup, if they want to scale their business by improving the tools and technologies they have, they get to do that to a global market, right? So, and we also have a very strong network across the world. So anybody who comes up with an idea, we also place them to 100+ partners, saying that, okay, I don't think this would do any magic, but end of the day, it's our job to make sure that you get this platform. At least one of them likes you, so you get to have some more visibility than yesterday. So in a simple way, it is a collective ecosystem where you have the government and where you have the investors, where you have the person who comes with an idea. Everybody gets the benefit, and we also get the benefit of creating this legacy system or creating this legacy platform. And so you're leaving a legacy when you die. So as an organization, or this can be practiced years and years and years without changing it, right? So it's an interesting proposition for everybody who wants to participate. And what we have done is that, we have created a digital platform so that anybody and everybody across the world can come and launch, shoot their ideas. So all they have to do is that they have to go to designspace.io, design with a Z or a Z, and they can submit their idea, and somebody would be in touch with you soon. That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the less lethal version of Shark Tank.
Yeah, it is. So there's no bureaucracy in our business. There's nobody to evaluate you. It's like I was talking to an accountant, and he said that, okay, I've got a software. I want a software for my accounting business. So I was looking at them. Are you not aware of, the amount of accounting software is available globally? He says that, okay, don't judge me. I need to have my own intellectual property of my software. That's number one. The reason I want this is because I deal with a lot of people who trust me with their information, so I don't want to give it away. And second thing is that I've got 300 clients, and I've been serving them for the last 10 years. So if I'm serving them using 30 days a month, and so I can actually help them to grow, in 10 days if you have a technology piece serving me better. So I was thinking, why is he needing a software? But he proved me wrong, saying that, okay, don't judge me. I've got a smaller market. So you don't have to cover the entire market. You should have a small market, and and it can get started, and the rest would fall in place. And you test it for a year. You shoot it as a product to the global market, because as long as the internet exists, it would fly. Yeah.
That's very cool. And I love this platform. I use it. I've used it with a couple of people already, like starting to walk them through the process. So it's super exciting. I love the accessibility of this, because there's probably not enough accessibility of ideas to create platforms. I feel like the world is running around with a million ideas and no way to execute them. So design space is like the ultimate way to bring those to fruition. Now, I mean, we're a little early, but I also feel like we have super covered everything that across, this span of softwares and intentions for Excelia and yourself, Farooq. Is there anything else that you'd like to just add or throw in here before we kind of finish up and end this webinar?
I would say that, we've been talking for a while right now. So if anybody's listening who's got some questions or clarifications, we would love to hear them. So we've got, I think, 12 minutes left. So we can hear if you have any questions, and or if you have any suggestions or recommendations to do things better next time. We would love to hear from you. So what do you think, Jamie? So let's hear if there are any questions. Otherwise, I would say I'm starting a great day. Yeah. So yeah.
You're starting a great day very early. I mean, I am sure that's a lot to process, just so everybody knows that this is actually being recorded and will be posted, so that you can rewatch it or revisit some of the snippets. And obviously the team, Farooq's team, will be more than willing to answer any questions. I'm more than willing to ask any questions through our general areas of contact, should you be watching this recording and want to ask for any clarification or for anybody to expand on anything in particular. It doesn't, I mean, I'm actually not sure who's going to get any of the notifications for the questions at this point, because I'm actually not sure who's in charge of this Zoom recording.
I think if there are any questions, you can just put them in the chat box. You have a chat box there. So if you have any questions, you can always put there. So we can wait for a few minutes, and if there are no questions, so we can always, call it as a day, So like we said, so that's where we are. So I've really enjoyed the conversation, Jamie, and thanks for bringing different perspectives. And so anybody who's listening to us who would like to work with us in any format, in terms of you bring an idea, you want to explore your business to the next level, or we can always talk about it. And we don't know everything, to be honest. We are very happy to say we don't know for many of the things, and that's how we work as a business. Yeah.
And Betsy, that's super important too, guys. Like, I mean, there's so many super important things about this conversation, but like, to have dynamic technology, all this stuff is important. I think that's the greatest thing. Like, companies that come to you and have something that's outside of the box a little bit, you're able to actually develop the system to work for those parameters rather than create parameters for them to work within. Same with the design space. I mean, the guys had no history in what I came to them with, like the idea that I came to them with. Like they had so many questions. They wanted me to be able to show them like in like what creatively and visually what I was thinking. And once they saw it and understood how tangible it was and what I was trying to create, they ran with it so extensively that I think they're even more excited about it than I am.
The biggest thing I like about about this exercise is that the glitter in their eyes when the product is launched, and the excitement, and because one thing I always tell my team, if somebody is coming with a project, a corporation is coming with a project, you need to make sure that you take care of them. But some project fails, so it's fine, because they can afford to fail. That doesn't mean that okay, we are not accountable. But if somebody is coming to you with an idea, please make sure that you put everything into it, because he's trusting you with your life, with his life. So basically, I would have sold my house to process this idea, or I would have taken a big loan from a bank, or I would be in a place where I'm about to commit something really bad because things are not really flying well for me. So anybody who comes to us with an idea, we think that okay, they are trusting us with their life. So we're not just counting this as a freebie. And believe it or not, it's more serious than you think for us. So we take it very seriously, and we make sure that every minute you spend is as important than even though we are doing it for completely without any financial obligation, we want to make sure that you also start thinking about it. And even though you think like you thought, Jamie, that I won't do it now, we are kind of forcing you to start immediately, right? Because the kind of inputs you see, the kind of colors you see on that, you see that okay, this is exciting more than I thought. So so I should look into it, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so it was more tangible than I thought too, because the software that I wanted to develop was quite extensive, like creatively and design wise. And I wasn't even sure that like developing software like that at this point in time existed. And the boys proved me wrong. They absolutely can do, sort of what I envisioned and build upon existing software to create the plan or the intention for this. I would like to point out, it's probably one thing that I did forget in my journey, is that I sent Farouk and the team like all the paperwork for like NDAs and all the legal ramifications for not being able to use the idea and sell the idea like without my involvement. So they were very, very happy to sign all of that legal documentation, and generally are like, even working with them on ISO Robot, there's never any hesitation to sort of adhere to agreements or legal ramifications on behalf of myself or anybody that I kind of refer or bring them into the network of. So that's super important. I feel like anybody that balks at signing legal paperwork in these instances is probably somebody to be slightly concerned about. So that stands to testament that, like what Farouk is saying and backs the fact that there is, like they're actually trying to build on an idea. It is an opportunity for them, particularly with design space. It is an opportunity for them, should the idea be viable and buildable and the business case be worthwhile, they will, potentially speak to you about investing soft capital, but that also doesn't obligate them to do it. So they will present you a business case, even if they don't believe the idea that is viable to invest soft capital, but you'll still have a business case and you can still walk away and try with that, out in the market, or build on that idea or expand on that idea to come back and revisit at a later date. So there's nothing to lose in exploring design space, that is for sure. And I mean, there's only dynamic technology to gain in working with ISO Robot. We have waited a couple of minutes and doesn't appear we have any current live questions, but again, feel free there is a message in the chat box for a email address for Exerdia. And I mean, everything is IT and tech, high tech here. So Farouk and I are both available through YouTube. All of our contact details are on the space there. And we look forward to potentially meeting some of you in some capacity in relation to dynamic technology or brilliant ideas.
Yeah, that's really great, Jimmy. So so all the best for your photo shoot. Coming up. So hope you're getting ready for that. And one thing before I wind up to say is that it can start from a national level. Where a president of a country wants to implement a platform for every single citizen to test their idea for free. They can do it that way, or it can sit in an organization where they say that, okay, I would like to give this opportunity to my employees or and my customers and suppliers, or it can be an individual who has an idea. So the scale, it can be as big as you want. And we also call design space awards, which is basically inviting 100 ideas from different regions. I think something was kicked off yesterday in Yorkshire, which is north of England, and where we started inviting 100 ideas from that region, and basically from UK. And the best idea gets a super investment of $100,000 from our side, or in the UK it's pounds, so they get that. So there are multiple engagements which we do. So, but again, I would say thank you very much, Jamie, for keeping it active and lively. I would like to thank everybody who were listening, and so that's it from my side. So Jamie, you can wind it up on your own style, so we can we'll get on with our days then. Yeah.
Yes, well, your day is very early, so I will not drag this out any further. If anybody did listen to the entire length of this webinar, we really appreciate it, and we hope you found something in any capacity that will help you and was of value to you. Thank you so much, Farouk, for answering all kinds of questions. I appreciate you waking up at 3 a.m. to talk to me, and I look forward to working with you further on our projects. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. You take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.